Hi, and welcome to the Keen Minds podcast. I am Jen, aka Takata Cycle.
And I am Tessa from Criminally Sane in Tumblr.
And we are covering the second episode of the 5th season of the Blacklist, Greyson Blaise. And
which is number 37.
It was such a fantastic episode. Such a great episode.
It was absolutely great. I loved covering and seeing, as I said, the Blacklist is like a magic act. When we started on season 1, we were seeing the whole shenanigans. It was just, the smoke, the effects, the cape, the helper with the shiny clothes. It was just a spectacle. Season 2, well, we not see the dress rehearsal. Season 3, now you see the trick. You get to know the magician in season 4, and in season 5, you're seeing the magician rehearse a new trick. You're starting him from the very beginning, and it's a fascinating journey.
That's actually a really good way of putting it. I was talking to the roomie the other day about how they're setting up season 5. I said, we're getting to see the beginnings of Raymond Reddington without having to go through flashbacks, which is fascinating to me. We're seeing all these little details of, because he's using the past to create the present. And this is how he begins. And it's just flawless. He's going at it with all the information that he's already gained from the first round. It's just beautiful.
Well, what he said, he spent time building a network of informants, patriots, traitors, and then he uses to build an empire. He already had that network. And one of the things that I loved is that they brought back the Sea of Galilee. The reason I like that is because that painting was stolen in 1990. And when they chose that particular painting to be the one in 106 in Gina Sanetacos that he's brokering the sale, I always had a feeling by the time it had been stolen that either Red stole it or Red found the person who stole it. And that became my theory after Alistair Pitt, when he says the man who stole it, Rogelio there, was his gardener. So we know that he probably stole it from the guy who stole it and brokered the sale ever since. And that's probably part of how he started to make his fortune. So I love that they brought it back. Now we get this great look at Red Reddington building an empire out of nothing, out of his smarts, basically.
So it was fascinating. Over on Tumblr, I'm looking for the post right now. Friendship to the Max, I believe, is her screen name. Sam, I believe, is her real name. She works for the Blacklist. She's on staff there, on the writing staff, I believe. In some format on the writing staff.
And she was talking about I love those posts.
Yeah. Oh, they're so fascinating because we've talked about before how much we just don't know. Like, you make a lot as fans. You make a lot of assumptions because not because you expect it to just be magic, but because you're ignorant. Not in a bad way, just you're not in the business, so you don't know what you don't know. And I'm that way, and I know a lot of people in fandom are that way. And there's a lot of things that I make a lot of assumptions on, and then I hear bits, and I go, oh, wow, that's how that works? I would never have guessed. And so she is an absolute gem to the fandom. She's on Tumblr. I'm sure she's on Twitter as well. I don't know, but I know her on Tumblr. And she made a comment about the Sea of Galilee and how all of that came about. And what was fascinating from her post, and if you're on Tumblr, definitely go check it out. She said that there have been instances in which art thieves that had been caught sued TV shows for basically taking credit for their theft. And so she had so many different little moving parts that she had to keep up with to make sure that they were on the correct legal side of things for the pieces of art that they chose, and this had to do with the
They
Picasso,
they
I
can,
believe.
yeah, they can be art that has been found. So there has to be that the thief is unknown, so nobody can sue them.
And so I'm sure that that's part of the reason why things like the Sea of Galilee have had threads through. I mean, it's nice for just continuity's sake. I mean, like, the continuity nerd in me loves it. Absolutely loves it. But it's very fascinating to see why, the practical side of why they choose certain pieces that have gone missing for things. It's really nice.
Do you want to start talking about Cooper?
Yes, let's start in on Cooper, because this guy, I feel bad for Coop, because I've seen some negative statements about him online since the episode aired. And this guy, he's got a lot of pressure on him. He has a new director. Yeah, basically boss. A new director. Hitchens is dead.
I have a feeling he has a very good idea that Ressler was somehow involved.
I do too. Cooper's not a dumb man. He's clever. And Ressler was very
He was
chill.
pretty good.
Yeah, he was very good. I was terrified of how good he was.
Too good.
Yeah.
He was
Well,
if he hadn't done anything, he would have probably been a little more upset. He would
I
have
don't
said,
know.
"Oh, I wanted to catch her, and I hate that guy with me having to bring her to justice," or something like that.
I don't know. I actually, like, sitting there and watching that when he said, well, maybe it's karma, my response was, well, okay, that's exactly what I expect you to say if you hadn't done it. You know, like, I think Ress did a really good job, but, yeah, Cooper's got a lot weighing down on him. I mean, because you remember Panabaker when she came in, she said, I'm the third one in, and everyone keeps dying. You know, like, I don't plan to be that next person. That's kind of how Hitchin is.
Well, not only that, but Panabaker also, when they were having the fallout with Gail, Panabaker said, "You're on your own. And it's like, and where do we go to get our reputations repaired? Nowhere."
So Cooper knows that he is the lone buffer between his team and chaos. I mean, the government raining down on them and basically turning them into the scapegoats if anything goes wrong. If the FBI is not, they're basically the old spy joke about the CIA that you've been disavowed. That's basically what the FBI is planning to do to them if they screw up at all. They do not have the support that they thought that they had. And they're working in incredibly dangerous territory. And to be fair, Red put him in a very bad position for what they're in and now. Now, Reddington had a plan the whole way through, and Red knew the plan, but I think Cooper is very frustrated that Reddington is unwilling to share said plan.
I would defend Red in one thing. You remember when Red told Liz about Miles McGrath?
Yes, I knew you were going there.
What did Liz did? She told Cooper. What did Cooper do?
I'm not saying that Red's wrong.
Went straight to Scotland Yard, and 2 detectives are dead.
I agree. I'm not saying Red is wrong. I'm just saying from Cooper, I'm a character analyst. Yeah. From Cooper's point of view, he is frustrated. He made the comment to Red. He said, "You don't respect that I lead this task force." And that's what's bothering him is a respect issue. And he does not feel respected, and that is what's frustrating him right now.
Yeah. I think Cooper got very upset with Red when Red let Rostov die.
He's not upset, remember? He's
yeah. That's an emotional thing. And then he gets all like, you know, and you start getting like Red, and Red is like, "Oh, I thought you were upset."
I just died at that point. Oh, I missed.
And then he brings out the thumb drive and the necklace, and you know that is Cooper is like, "Okay, you SOB."
I know, right?
You did it again.
I hate you so much, but I love you, but I hate you. Well, remember Panabaker last... Do you remember Panabaker last year when she said, I hate getting in bed with Raymond Reddington, but we need his blacklist? I mean, that's how Cooper feels right now, I think. That he hates it, but he knows that they need him. That if they don't have him, if they don't have him and Liz, because Red and Liz is what makes it, if they don't have Raymond Reddington and Elizabeth Keene, they don't have a task force. They are just out into the open. And every man for himself.
And it's not an issue of, well, I go back to my regular life. With Raymond Reddington in his life, the options are either you're in a skyrocket to the top, or you're going down in a dark pit and you'll be disgraced and put in jail. There is no in between. There is no gray little life to live. There is just two. You're either way up top or way down bottom.
And right now they're at the bottom. And Red is, I think Red is happy to take them to the top with him. But Cooper is going to need to put faith in him, which is incredibly difficult. I don't blame Cooper for not having any faith in him. But as a person looking at it from Cooper's point of view, I don't blame him. As a fan, he needs to have faith. And when he does put faith in him, I think he's a penny stock.
Yep. Well, I also think that we're setting up a big arc here with Cooper, and it's starting by this. It started last season when he started doubting Red, when he started getting upset with Red because Cooper lost a lot of people with Rostov, and Red let him go without telling him anything. So I think that there is a level of exasperation that Cooper was in a wild ride, and I think that he has seen his agents go through a lot, and
I think he's also very connected to his team. I think that he has a lot of love for his team. Charlene had commented that his job was his life, and I'm not going to say he sees them as children particularly, because they're adults. He knows they're adults, but he loves them dearly, and he has a very special connection with this team. I don't know if he's had other teams like this that he's had this kind of connection to, but he certainly does to this task force. That he's been willing to make the hard choices for Aram and say, this was not your call to make, it was mine. He's been willing to make that hard choice to walk in, tamper with evidence, and get what Liz needed to get her answers. And hand it to her and say, here you go. I honestly, I truly believe that if Wrestler had gone to Cooper first off, now the longer it goes, the more issues he's going to have. But if he'd gone to Wrestler first off, and I also will say, as for the Wrestler fans out there, I don't blame Wrestler for this at all, because it's putting Cooper in a very bad position. But I do think if he'd gone to Cooper first off, that Cooper would have protected him from the Hitchin death. He would have protected him.
Everybody knew that and Hitchens had it coming. I mean, Red was going to kill her. Yeah. Red was going to kill her. It was just a matter of time. She was just living on borrowed time.
I saw a fantastic piece the other day. It said it was Red and Hitchin talking, and said, I can't wait to make you
to hurt you.
And then turned around and said, bros help out, or something like that.
Yeah, it was coming. I'm very excited because I feel that the two characters the two post office characters are gonna get a big arc this year are Cooper and Wrestler, and I like the direction they're taking Cooper. And if you remember, that I'm a fan of the promotional pictures. We haven't had a promotional picture, upset about it. The last one was Red with a mask that was coming out. But the last promotional picture of Cooper and Wrestler, they were in an inclined plane. Like the world was out of whack, and everything about them was going sideways. So I knew that was coming. Yeah. it's I knew that was coming, and I'm excited for what is happening. You got anything more on Cooper, or should we move to should we should we probably, well, I don't even know that there is anything on Aram, really.
I mean, it's
Nothing.
mostly connected to Samar. I mean, and there's very little even on Samar. There
Oh,
was.
Samar had a beautiful moment.
Oh, I mean, like I loved her in it. I mean, that white dress.
I was actually referring to the scene in which they get to that apartment.
I liked that because Wrestler's sitting there going, "You gotta hide. You gotta get out of there. You gotta hide," and she's just like, "Hi, we're here to rob you."
Yeah. Where is that page? And I love the fact that she used something that she has for the second time. When she went to the guy that supposedly hired the debt collector, she says, "I am from a task force that doesn't exist. So that means I can do whatever." And then this time she goes and says the same thing. We don't have any authority. We don't have any right to be here, which means we're gonna do whatever we need to do, because that means we're really determined to get it.
It's kind of CIA-esque, you know. When I say that, I mean TV CIA. I don't know if the real CIA works that way, but TV CIA-esque, in which there are no rules. Like, if you can make it happen, make it happen. Very James Bond, very spy. And that comes back to, I understand that a lot of people see this as a procedural show of FBI, but it is a spy show. In every, it's becoming more. This show transcends the traditional niches that people try to fit shows into. It really does. And that's one of the reasons I love it so much, is that it pushes boundaries and it transcends. But yes, I agree. Samar sitting there with that, pulling her gun and just lounging back on the couch and going, "Who knows what we'll do?" That was one of my favorite scenes of the episode.
Yeah, it was great that the way she arrives so like nicely dressed and kicks the guy ass. That was beautiful.
Oh, it was so fantastic. But when they needed someone in there to open up an opening, they sent Samar Navabi. Just saying.
Yeah. So I thought it was well done, and I know that she's not gonna have probably a very very big arc this season, because she had a huge arc last season.
Well,
so it's
honestly, I feel like the writers had always planned on the Saram relationship, and so when you're in TV and there's a relationship that is not with the main character, it's either going to be all drama, or you've kind of got to give it a back seat of sorts when it gets to the point. And that's kind of where it's at right now, is that they've got to let this simmer in the background with little nice scenes here and there. And I want Samar and Aram to be happy. Good heavens, give those poor souls a few minutes of happiness. They deserve it at this point.
And they've earned it. They both have growth curves that go there. And they created really nice stuff for them. But in this episode, there was really not, I mean, other than that, there was not that much for them. So, Wrestler.
Oh, Wres. I know how much is coming for him. I did love that little line. I mean, it was kind of a quick little hat tip to the fact that Samar and Wrestler had slept together. I am not personally a fan of that relationship, but I did love that little moment where he's asking about Aram, and she goes, "Oh, you're jealous. That's,
But I think the problem was about something like the woman was coming back or something.
It was. I mean, like, my point is that they were being funny about it, and it's not
they moved past the awkward.
Yes, they are adults that have moved past it, and it's just funny now. They're willing to joke. I feel like when you get to the point where you're willing to joke about it, that's when you know you're okay. And for the most part, and
Wrestler had a lovely line when they were in the thing, just try not to bid. And as soon as he said that, I said, oh yeah, yet Red is going to bid.
You tell Red not to do something, he's gonna do the thing.
Yeah. Other than that, there was not much. He was there bringing the art. He became the moving guy, as the guys in the Blacklist Expo said, which was hilarious. And other than that, there was not much. I mean, he's like, whoa, and then they give it up. What is he playing at?
Yeah, I mean, he did his part. And he got, I think, quite a bit of screen time this episode. I felt like it was very well balanced between everybody. That's been one of my complaints before, that they have trouble balancing things, to a degree, between different characters. And I felt like this episode was incredibly well balanced.
Because it's serialized, it's not a procedural, so it's much harder to balance, because you're going with one storyline versus just giving a little bit, having one storyline and then you give a little bit of time to each. This has to go with whatever the story is going, so that's what it ends up happening. It takes us to Dembe.
Okay.
Or should we leave Dembe and Tom to the last?
No, Dembe now. You've started in on this. I had so much fun with Dembe.
I love the prayer. That's how you get people to confess, in a prayer that this doesn't lead to hospitalization.
I cackled through the entire first round, and then the roomie came home and we watched it. And I'm sitting there busy gifting my Kane Squared scenes, and I went, watch this scene carefully. It's fantastic. So Dembe cooks, and then he prays. And it was so fantastic with all of that. And I now officially need a scene in which he and Tom cook. I'm just saying, as a Tom fan, I need a scene in which those two cook like a masterpiece between them.
Yeah, that was a lovely scene. And now let me ask you something. Do you think that Albert Dennison had been tortured by Dembe?
No, I don't think so.
I
think there's a third party.
Think so either. Yeah, because the reason why Tom and with the gun out instead of just knocking off the door is because the lock is broken.
Yeah,
exactly. And the same reason Tom and Red and Dembe enter with the gun out. Mm-hmm. So if they had been first, they wouldn't have left the guy tied in. Anybody could have come in with the door locked. They would have taken the guy. Red, he wouldn't have gone pick up Red. He would have called Red and say, "Hey, come over here. I got the guy." There was no reason for them to leave and then come back.
That and Red is much more of a lock picker versus a door kicker.
Yeah. But Dembe could have kicked the door, but to me, there was somebody else. And that's what we're seeing. And that is, if you remember when we first started talking about the famous suitcase, the bag of bones, I said, I think that Dembe.
I don't remember who it was the other day, but someone called it a bag of bones, and I thought of you. I feel like it was John or somebody.
John Buckenkamp was the first one who said it.
Is that who you picked it up from?
But I hadn't read the interview by the time I said it. So the bag of bones.
But it was probably John then, and I was like, "Oh, Tessa."
The bag of bones. Yeah, it was, to me, that was very interesting, because what I came to understand in this episode was that the bag of bones, it's like those Newton cradles. You know, the Newton cradles are those bowls that they're like 5 bowls suspended, and then you lift one, and then the other one on the other end lifts on his own. It just transmits the movement by the motion, the pressure, one bowl to the other. You know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
All right.
You pull one back and it starts
it starts a cycle, and then it swings back and forth. But the ones in the middle don't move. And I always thought that's what it is.
It's simple physics.
That's exactly what Kay did. He used Tom as the first bowl. But he tells Red that she has the suitcase. That will get Red on the track of the suitcase. She leaves the suitcase for Tom to pick up, knowing that Red eventually will get to Tom. At the same time, I think she got Dennison, and that's why Tom was supposed to let Dennison know when he picked it up, because that will give Dennison then calling this Oleander and letting him know. And then all three will come together and eventually leave Agnes alone, which is what Kate always wanted. She's going to get everybody killed.
There was a day that I would have argued with you on that. But after, but it's not gone. It's lessened. But after those outtakes from season 4 with Liz and Kate's conversation, which reminded me exactly of what you had been saying for quite a bit of the second half of the season, saying she's trying to arrest her to save Agnes, quote unquote. And when Liz called her out on that in the deleted scene, that's all I could think of. And while I'm hesitant to think that Kate has set all of this up to kill Tom and then to kill Liz and potentially Red, part of me is incredibly hesitant to that, but I think I am willing to say it may be the more emotional part of me that is wanting to put the brakes on that one.
Let me put it that way. It's what I would have done if I had been in Kate's position.
If you were...
or Red position.
Okay,
that
everybody.
is a very Red plan.
To be fair, everybody, this is everyone's cue not to get on Tessa's bad side.
But I'm not Kate, and I'm not Red. I'm just an ordinary person. But put in the circumstances where Red is, or where Kate was. Yeah. That's what I would have done.
I'm kidding. Tess is not going to kill anybody. It's okay.
Yeah, it's all right. Don't go in my backyard digging.
I have faith. Maybe not that much.
But definitely that was, to me, was like, oh my God, that's what she's doing, because why would this poor man be beaten up? Mm-hmm. How on earth that suitcase came out of a farm in the middle of nowhere? Kate carried it and put it in a nobody could have known that suitcase is in play unless the person who notified Tom also notified Oleander.
And
she was sure to make sure to tell Red that she got the suitcase.
And there's got to be a reason that Oleander's name was the first one to come out of Dennison's mouth. Just saying.
The guy who beat it up?
Yep.
Because he probably wants to know where the suitcase is. So that got a very interesting dynamic there with Dembe, and I think that is the reason why Tom invited Red and Dembe to make sure to see who's the one investigating this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I definitely think that entire setup was an information gathering setup, and we can get further into that with Tom, but. Dembe, my highlight scene with Dembe was that dinner that he made. If I were to ever, and I would never be a serial killer, by the way. I would just like to say that. If I were ever to murder, that would be fun to write into a story somewhere, that someone, I'm going to
Don't get on her bad side either.
I actually had a conversation with one of my bosses today. We were talking about something horrible. I said, oh my God, because he was jokingly talking about a conspiracy theory. I went, oh my God, that's amazing. I went, in a completely fictional circumstance, that is amazing, not in reality. I had to catch myself.
When you're talking about a TV show, that's what it's implied.
I'm a writer. when I'm talking about writing things, TV shows, books, etc., I am almost always talking about this fictional world in which I would not actually do the things. I hope everybody knows that. Tessa and I do not go around murdering people. I only do it in fiction. You know? No real human
She
beings.
likes beating up her characters. They always end up... The more she likes them, the more beaten up they get.
That's accurate. I've never figured out what's wrong with me on that. But to be fair, I follow enough other fanfiction authors that I know that I'm not the only one with that issue. Many fanfiction authors beat on their favorites. I think it's because of the hurt comfort issue, but that's a whole nother realm. But Dembe, like, that was so fantastic.
Doesn't kill you, make you stronger. So we agree. Dembe is the best scene of torturing a guy. I find very hard that he will go there to the other house, beat up this guy, then leave.
Yeah, and he already proved that his form of torture is with honey, not the stick.
Yeah,
he made that very clear in that scene.
And there are other ways. I mean, he would have taken the guy to Red. He wouldn't have beaten up the guy, leave to go get Red. Like, Red can take a cab. Red cannot drive. I mean, he has proven he's fine stealing cars of any kind. In fact, he loves Wagoneers. So why not steal himself anything get there?
Or just go to Liz and go, I need a ride. I'm waiting for the day where he shows up at the apartment. Liz isn't there. And he looks at Tom and goes, I need a ride. And Tom goes, okay. Why are you here?
Are you inviting me to dinner? Because I'm broke today and I don't have enough to eat. So, hey, you got dinner?
I want one of those moments. Anyway. But yes, back on track. Dembe.
Dembe
sorry,
was
guys,
amazing.
One of those nights. But yeah, that was... I do feel like that part of that purpose of showing that he gets his answers with honey, not the stick, honey versus vinegar, is that he was not responsible for beating Dennison. Mm-hmm. Some third party was responsible for that, and it was not Dembe Zuma.
Mm-hmm. So, that takes us to, should we do Tom next, or you want to do Liz and Red?
We can do Tom and then fade into Liz and Red, because the three of them are so intermingled at this point.
Yeah, it's I think we were saying before, and we had a little mishap, that a lot of people feel that Tom gets a lot of real estate, and the truth of the matter is that Tom is the third most important character because he is the husband or the love interest and the father of the child of one of the main characters and the son-in-law of the other.
Yeah, it's his connection to the main characters versus who he specifically is,
and the parallels mm-hmm. he creates with the mother of the main character.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they are a fractured image of Red and Katerina.
Mm. So Tom had quite a little bit of trick, because I was reading, like, why is they not communicating? Why he's saying that Kate was a good woman? And then that's when I have to go and say, wait, wait at the timeline.
Exactly.
Timeline is very important here.
I actually made that comment on Tumblr, and you may have weighed in on that, but he doesn't. You've got to look at what we know as the fans watching a TV show and what the characters know. He hasn't been here. He doesn't know. And they made it fairly clear in that first scene with Liz and Tom that there's a lot of stuff that Tom doesn't know, that Liz doesn't know what happened with Tom doesn't know what happened with Liz.
Well, I mean, let me put this into perspective. 420 and Redemption 7 happen on the same day. That's while Liz is about to be taken by the debt collector. That's a day that Cooper goes to get Howard from the insane asylum when they have them. That is the exact same day. You can see it on the way that he's dressed. So that means that at the same time that he was in New York that morning, tells Liz that he needs help getting Howard out. He goes back to DC, to New York. Liz gets kidnapped by the debt collector, going home to pick up things for the kid, while gets taken up by his mother and beaten by Solomon. So this is all happening at the same time. We got a kind of messed up time.
And you've also got two characters that are very... it's very much within their characterization that they have their own issues and they're not going to burden the other with them. So Liz has... Liz understands that Tom is in the middle of this. She's not going to... If she believes that Agnes is safe, she's not going to tell him, our daughter's in trouble. This is all happening near our daughter because Tom's going to come running home the moment Agnes is in trouble. And she knows that. She's not going to tell him that because of that. And vice versa. He's only going to tell her what he needs to, what he feels like he needs to get done what needs to get done, because he doesn't want to worry her, because he's not home. There's only so much she can help in, because as he told her in Redemption, I have to handle this on my own.
Plus the timeline. I mean, then you have all of the Kate arc, like the 421 and 422, happening at the same time that Whitehall Part 2, in which they're breaking into Alcyon with only like 5 mercenaries, and then they're being hunted. He's being hunted with the Artax network. They're not like having conversation like, hi honey, I just got home from my work at the office. No, they're being haunted. Liz is being taken. Kaplan is trying to put her in jail. They don't have time to sit down and talk about these things. They're surviving.
I actually just posted a fanfic, a one-shot with that briefly touched on, in which it's this moment of, there hasn't been time to discuss this. There hasn't been time to discuss that Scotty had him beaten via Solomon, and that this all happened, because obviously enough time passes between the beating and Tom coming home that he's able to heal from that. So while the conversation will probably happen at some point, it's going to be in the time that it needs to happen. There's a lot to cover.
And then he comes home. He comes home from the suitcase, take a shower. That's when she's coming back from her road trip. And then they have that night in which obviously they haven't seen each other really in 2 months. You think they're going to be talking about, hey, my mom had me beaten up, and my mom is in jail, but no. They said, okay, Reddington is my father. He's pushed a suitcase. They fall into each other's arms. They start talking. They see their daughter, whatever. That's not what they're talking about.
If you look at the clothing changes, Liz walks in a black button-up short-sleeve shirt when she, hops into his arms, which I'm sure we mentioned last week, but that was entirely improv on Megan's part. I just love that so much. Yeah. She hops into his arms. They snog, the whole bit. And then it fades to black, and then it opens up the next week with Tom pushing her against the wall, and I don't think it's the next morning. I think it's later that. No, I think it's later that night.
It's that night. It's that night, and then the next episode opens.
It opens with that, after seeing Greyson and everything. But it opens with them, with Tom pushing her against the wall and them just going at it. But she's in a tank top. And so that's after they've put Agnes to bed, after she's dropped the outer layer of her clothing, etc., etc. Time has passed. Not a lot of time, but a couple hours to get Agnes. Yeah, a couple hours to get Agnes to bed and everything. That's her undershirt that she had on under her tank, or under her shirt that she was wearing. Yeah. And so they've gotten their kid fed, bathed, put to bed, and then parents have adult time.
Yeah. And then that 502 opens the next morning. Liz is late. She says, it was a crazy night. Then that's starting, and they go to Europe. They haven't had time to talk.
feel so bad for them. Oh my gosh. Like, he comes home and then she has to leave. You know that had to have been the worst
Well,
conversation. Honey, I'm sorry.
Red is making everything he can to create all these blacklisters, which, oh, what a coincidence, are always in faraway places. Last week it was a road trip. This week was Europe. He's going to do this all the time to get Liz away from that apartment so that she doesn't get that suitcase.
Without Dembe, yeah, and I think he is keeping her away from Tom to a degree, because, well, I don't think he knows that Tom, I mean, I've seen a theory floating around, and it's more that I've heard the theory. I haven't actually read the theory, that Nick went to Red and told him. And it's possible. I don't disagree with the theory, but I also don't agree with it. It's one of those that I could see where it's possible, because I wouldn't blame Nick, because they went out of their way to make sure that we knew Nick's engaged again, so he has a family, and so I don't think that the audience would blame Nick if he were to go against Tom.
But then why would Red then casually go there, and I thought about
to size Tom up.
I wouldn't.
Same way.
Yeah,
same reason Tom did it.
Yeah, I wouldn't. It's not out of the question for me, but to me, it doesn't have legs, just because Red is so desperate to get that suitcase that he wouldn't have Nick saying, okay, text me an address, and then, because he will already know where Tom is. I mean, maybe next week we'll find out that as soon as texting me address, Red is waiting. But to me, at this point, it doesn't feel that that's what is going to happen. It feels that Red is doing whatever he can. And what Tom did is to invite him. And I think that Red, to a certain extent, remember that Red has also been denied access to Agnes, have been denied access to that. And meanwhile, the relationship between Red and Tom, contrary to what a lot of people want to believe, it hasn't been that bad. Red has gone out of his way to tell him, stay out of your parents. He sees him. He works with him as legat. He put his trust in Tom. There has not been this terrible thing. So why at this point, where Red is so happy having recovered that daughter and having access to the granddaughter, is he really going to do anything at this point? Because if he knew that Tom had the suitcase, that situation would have been different. Yeah, there was time to get Liz out of there. He would have invented a little thing. He would have got Liz out of there, and that suitcase would have been up. He's desperate.
I tend to agree with that, but I also leave a window open for the possibility with
Me too.
Nick. And that's kind of where I'm at with that. I may leave a little bigger one than you, from what you just said, but I could see it with Nick, and I could see Red knowing Tom well enough to know he's going to hold back and letting him play that game out. I could see it going either way. I haven't made a firm decision on my beliefs yet, and I'm just gonna kind of wait and see where canon takes us, because canon is ultimately where we go with it. And I do think that entire dinner situation was Tom sizing Red up and where he was on everything, getting a good read on it. And to a degree, I think it was Red sizing, in return sizing Tom up, because he knew something was weird. And Liz certainly knew something was weird. She gave a look like, are you kidding me? Do you think I'm an idiot? I see what's happening here, people.
Yeah, something definitely was up. I have to say, I love the parallel scenes where we're getting Tom in the cell phone store, getting the address of the guy, and at the same time we're seeing Red pull all that undercover thing, which is a twist in a twist. So they always do these parallel scenes with Tom, which is, at the end, they say that you either marry a man just like your father or you marry a man completely different. Liz obviously married the guy just like her father.
Chris and I were just talking about this today. When she listens to this, she's gonna hear it and laugh. um, but what I was gonna say was that I really need to take a moment, and I did it on Tumblr. I walked through this, but I need to take a moment on the podcast and walk through this. Tom in that scene in the phone shop, because he walked in, and as soon as I saw it, this is how badly fandom screws with you. Is my brain went, he's talking about getting a divorce. Everyone's going to freak out and going to say, "Ho, look, Tom's gonna lose Liz." That's where my brain went, and I'm going, stop! I don't even hear it. I have all the right people blocked. I don't hear it, and yet you're still in my brain. Look what you people have done to me.
Why would you even think so? It was such a brilliant ploy.
Oh, but hang on. And then I rewatched it, and then I rewatched it again, and then I gifted it. And that's really where I saw it. Karen over on Tumblr wanted it, and so I made a gift set for her. And I sat there and I went, oh my god, he walked in with a phone number. Mm-hmm. A phone number.
And he left with a name and address.
A full name. Not just a name, a full name and address, and did not have to give a thing over to identify himself. Because he spun such an emotionally awkward tale that
one that any guy can relate to.
Yes. And the guy did not want to step on toes and make him feel worse. If there had been a woman in there, it would have been an entirely different situation.
Oh yeah, he would have and that's what a good undercover do. And whenever they do scenes like this with him, they usually have a scene in which Red is doing something very similar. Which, feeds my thing that Red actually was trained by the Major. Not in the school, but just when the Major was actually
potentially worked together. Yeah, because I think they were. I don't think that Bud was too much older than him. Maybe 10 years older than him.
Yeah, enough for him to have been a major when Red was a little middlemanship.
I guess that's true.
Midmanship.
I do think that that Bud was in the military at some point. And so, yeah, I could see that. I definitely could see that.
I mean, just the way they wrap bodies is like that must come from the bodies wrapping technique.
So, one thing I want to make a comment about before we move off of Tom is that interesting moment, and I don't know if anybody else has commented on this yet, but I felt like, at least for me, there was a very interesting moment in the way that he was talking to Dennison. And he was like, "Who did this to you? I'm sorry." And then he goes and hides in the closet there. They have taken Tom from a cold-blooded killer and humanized him in the course of 4 full seasons, 1 spinoff, and 2 episodes of the 5th season. He's there for information, but yes, he is at least appreciative of this man's precarious situation. Reddington walks in there, says, "I appreciate your loyalty to Kate. I admire that. I'm going to kill you if you don't give me information." And then does. I don't blame... I'm not saying that I'm blaming Red for what he does, because from his point of view, from his place that he's coming from, absolutely, that's the step to take. This man is in the way, he is a danger, he is a threat, nullify the threat. I don't disagree with that from Red's point of view, but I do think it's an interesting, distorted sort of, not parallel is not the term I'm looking for, but offset that they put between the two men, in which Tom has been building a soul. I mean, he has been developing a soul and has really come to that point. And Reddington just puts 2 bullets in the man when he's done with him.
You would have to equate that scene to the scene in which Tom tortures little Nico, because the difference is Red seems to be fighting because people used to have this weird feel for the suitcase, in which the suitcase is going to be a trouble for Red and not for Liz. Like they seem to still think that the suitcase was a ploy by Kate to separate Red from Liz. But that is not at all what Kate says. She says, I didn't have to try to separate you two. All I had to do was show her the truth. So that means that showing Liz giving Liz that suitcase will not, the separating them is no longer necessary. All she had to do was show her the truth. And the fact that Red had no inkling that this woman who was willing to put them all in jail, who was willing to kill Bass, to make him try to Dembe by making him believe that Dembe had poisoned him, would not even cross his mind that she will go for that suitcase, tells you that that suitcase is not dangerous for Red. That's the only reason why that didn't even cross his mind was because he had no clue that Kate will try to kill Liz. That's the face that Kate has in that scene by the beach. She is a woman that had been left with an unthinkable. In order to protect the baby, she has to kill the mother because she can't save the mother. And that's why she's in that horrendous look. And she's like, I can't protect you. I don't know how to do it. I failed you. I promised and I failed you. And she said, I'm all about saving Agnes. I already failed you. She's not trying to separate Liz and Red. She's trying to eliminate them so that Agnes is saved. So that means that Tom, which is basically about the same, also has to be eliminated.
Which makes me kind of sad because he thinks of her as a good woman.
Well,
he's got a very distorted view of good, though, to be fair. Like, Tom doesn't have any basis to go off there.
This is his basis for good.
I love him, but he does not have a solid basis for good actions. And I agree. I think that Liz is his go-to for that, and she's also the woman that tied him up and kept him in a boat and used his health as leverage to get what she needed from him. So, I mean, if that's your basis for good, then it's incredibly objective. Subjective.
So I think that you, for Red, this is what's happening. Red is this thing is not going to make so much trouble for Red that it is going to kill Liz. That's why Red had no idea that Kate would even think about that. And in that thing, what Red is doing is, I'm saving my daughter. And the moment that Tom realizes what Kate was doing by giving him that suitcase, telling Dennison to tell Oleander and tell Red, so they all come in this collision course where they're all going to die, then he will go at things the same way.
I like that because I agree that there's got to be a point that puts Tom and Red on the same side, and right now they're faced off, and that's interesting. I really like that because I like it.
Nice and twisted.
I'm sitting here thinking about this, and I really like it.
Well, it goes right in Red's books, and Kate learned from Red, and you do contingencies, and he usually uses one guy to go after this guy, so that this guy gives him this guy, and this guy gives him this guy.
And I do agree, and I do think that Red will be able to see at this point that Tom has been a pawn in it, and I think Tom will have been a pawn in it. For anybody that reads my stories, you may have seen a one shot that I did based off of of Allie Blacklist's theory and Chris M23's theory and various people. I know they're not the only ones that have seen it or that have made the theory, but those are the two that I know. That have stated that, you know, they think that Red will be saving Tom rather than killing him in that flash forward scene. And I really do think it. And if it's a point, because I think that Red knows Kate very well. He knows how loyal she makes people. He understands that Tom is going, and he also knows Tom well enough to know that he's doing this. He thinks for Liz. It's a noble meaning behind it. He's not planning to keep this from his wife. He's planning to get information and then tell her.
Before he gives her that.
Yeah, and I do think that Red will acknowledge that, and he'll end up saving Tom. And I think that will be where Kate miscalculated.
Well, because I don't think Kate knew that Red is her father. Kate's action makes no sense if he thought Red was her father. I think she thought Red thought he was her father. Because Kate was played by Katerina like an instrument. I mean, Katerina was better than Red at manipulating people. She was awesome. I mean, here is this nanny. The nanny is first coming to the conclusion that she's a Soviet agent because she kills a Soviet agent in the kitchen. That makes no sense whatsoever. Usually the people that were killing Soviet agents were American agents, not Soviets. Then she starts talking about leaving the lover or not leaving the lover. It's like, excuse me, how is that any of your business? Then it's like the whole thing is bizarre, but yet she played it. And Kate was like fascinated by this woman that provided her with bodies, cadavers, and babies. You know, how you seduce a Kate? You give her cadavers and babies.
It's accurate. I mean, you're not wrong. And I think that's one of the things I love so much about Kate Kaplan is she was such a fascinating character that way. That she was so bizarre. I mean, she really was.
Highly intelligent and awkward.
I hate so much that she had to die. Like, I know there's been a big movement and a big frustration in fandom community, in which, you know, killing the gays has been the comment. They, like, people keep killing the gay and lesbian characters. And I know John... Huh?
There was no way on earth that this woman was going to get alive.
Yeah, that's fair. And I know John said that he was very... I watched an interview with John, I think both the Johns, where they talked about how cognizant they were of that. I think that
they handled it very well.
Yeah, they knew it was coming, but with Kate...
that wasn't what defined Kate.
No,
what defined Kate
not.
was this bizarre, distorted sense of commitment that she had to a woman who wasn't telling the truth, and to Red, who also wasn't telling the truth, possibly because they both realized that she was very awkward, highly intelligent, and very awkward, and I think that on it, my theory is that when Red went to hire her, he had two options: kill Kate or hire Kate. Either he kept her very close, or he hired.
It's the same It's the same thing that with Tom right now, with bringing Red to dinner. You keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Well,
I think that Kate became a friend. I think that maybe
Kate became a friend, but she was also a loose end. She was the only person who absolutely knew that Liz was Masha, and where was she? and what relation she had to Katerina Rostova. So at that moment, I think that there was one of two options: kill her or get her clothes. And Red chose to get her clothes, and that's what made all this problem, because she was told don't love Liz, but she did.
I do think that Red, when given the choice between death and another option, he does choose another option. Now there are many times that he chooses death. I mean, because in his world he has to. And in the heightened reality that we're functioning in for the Blacklist, I don't blame him for that. There are many deaths that he's caused, that he's brought about, that
86, 86
Okay,
bodies.
Panda Baker. 86. Oh my gosh, that woman. I
Because
hope we
if it's
bring her back
85,
soon.
it's much better. But
Oh
86?
no. We can get behind 85. 86 is too much for us. I swear, as a person that has been raised in the South, I don't understand even half of what she's saying.
But what a terrific character. I hope that we see her soon.
Oh, I love her. I love her to death. I just don't have a clue what I'm right there with Cooper. I don't know what you're saying.
But it was such a... I gotta say something about Tom, because I'm gonna lose my mind. It's kind of late. I love he invited Tom and Dembe to eat.
You mean Red and Dimbe?
Yeah, Brett and Dembe to eat, yes.
Yeah.
It was such a great thing, and he's at the table, and Liz is wearing this nice dress, and she goes to the door all happy. I don't know who she imagined it was, and there it is, Red. And I think it was an excellent choice, because it was a little weird scene, but it also, within their dynamic, and I think you wrote a great line that in one of your fictions that I love, civil means you don't shoot at each other.
Yeah.
He's really trying to I mean, that is his father-in-law. I mean, what the heck? The man's mother tried to beat him up. His father used him all the time. Red had Liz kidnapped. In that family, that's what passes for family. So he invited the father-in-law to eat. It was very sweet.
I also think that in a way Tom is spiraling. I do. I think that he's got a lot of emotional situations going on right now in which he had his own biological family issues coming in. He came home, he had these bones. I think he expected to hand them over to Liz, explain that, get through that, and then talk about his own family stuff when he'd had time to process.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly, he can't hand her those bones. Ergo, that gets pushed off. And in turn,
because
the processing kind of gets pushed off. Everything with Scotty and Howard, because we still don't know if he knows that Kat was referring to Howard when she handed him the jump drive and said, it's him. We still don't know if he knows.
We have no idea what happened.
If she passed out right after that, or if she gave him a whole spiel. We don't even know if Kat's alive or not. All we know is that she came stumbling into his hotel room, and some fans don't even know that because they didn't watch Redemption. And so they've got to approach this in a very delicate sort of fashion that does not that handles people that haven't seen Redemption. And Tom has a lot of emotional baggage right now for a man that doesn't handle emotional baggage very well.
And not only that, one thing it is to believe that Reddington is your father-in-law. Another one is to know it.
Exactly.
They're two different things.
And suddenly, he's got all of this emotional baggage, and
Liz is so happy.
She is. And he's just like, nope, shove it behind the couch there. And I've seen people get angry at him for that, and I'm going, no. Like, have you not seen how she reacted to Kirk? That is 500% the best decision. Like, I was upset with him. As a fan of Tom Keene, I was upset with him when he lied to her, even when she was freaking out with Agnes being on the quote unquote baby camera. You know, when Kirk had her, and the way that he lied to her about, or not even lied, but misled about the going after Agnes and all of that blowing up in his face, I was a little upset with him over that. I understood, but I didn't agree. And right now, I agree with where he's going with this, because I love Liz, but when it comes to biological family, she is not, she doesn't have the clearest view. She has blind spots.
No. Yeah. Shall we move into Red and Liz?
Yes. It was a fantastic episode for them.
Tuscan sunset.
All the pumpkin references. I love because it and John told us we were going back to season 1 with it, and all I can think of is she's talking about his pumpkin shirt is Grandma's pumpkins about their wall from season 1. Mm-hmm. And then you run into that the safe word was pumpkin.
Pumpkin, and they're in a level 3 situation, and those scenes were so delightful. And Liz is like, how do you know that? And she has to know because she was there when he was brokering the sale.
And she had so much fun with it. She was so excited. And to be fair, and this is kind of bringing it back around to Tom again, and I'm sorry, but this is what I do for people that are new to this, because I love Tom Keene. But to be fair, they are all so intermixed. But I feel like up until this point, she's had a little bit of an issue understanding Tom and the way that the need he has for this kind of work that he does. I mean, because he spent the better part of his life in undercover operations. Mm-hmm. And I think that she gets it on a level, but there's a deeper level that she's like, I just don't get it. You know, I don't understand this need for you to do this rather than play, you know, Wheels on the Bus go round and round with our daughter. And I think that this is, and I don't think this is the main purpose of this, but I do think one of the nice side effects of this is that she's going to understand Tom a whole lot better and this need for being a part of this world. And them finding the balance will be just that much more a team effort of understanding all sides of that balance. She's finding out who she is.
She's fine. I mean, she's. There was somebody. I think it was on Reddit that was coming and saying, you know, I just rewatched season 1, and Liz was working such an undercover. She was, I mean, that little I'm Miss Perfect and I'm by the rule with the doll makeup. I always wonder, why on earth are they putting that doll makeup?
Someone made a comment on Tumblr recently. They just jumped into Tumblr. Well, I know you did, but someone new to Tumblr, someone new to the Keen Squared fandom on Tumblr, made the comment the other. I can't remember what their screen name is, but they made the comment. They said, you know, I just rewatched season 1, and that whole bit, that was so fake. She was so lying to herself. Tom and Liz were so lying to themselves, and now they're being honest and they're good, you know?
Well, it was just this act, and I think that Liz is really coming to who she is. This whole show, and that goes into Wrestler, that goes into Cooper. It's about people finding out who you really are, and I think a lot of people were doing like fakes. I think that as much as I think that Liz, the perfect agent, the pink and perfect agent by the book, was a total act. I think that Wrestler, the Boy Scout, was also an act. Something that he was, huh?
I said potentially, yeah.
Yeah, because he was justifying. There was this hurt little boy that lost a father. I imagine he was a boy. He was older, but being that perfect by the book was a way of like making his father's death be less senseless. And that is not who he is. And those things were already kind of bubbling to the surface, you know. He's leading an assassination attempt. I cannot tell you how illegal that is. On a foreign soul that is basically a sanctioned murder. That that doesn't even get there. He has done illegal things and not off by the book things all the time. Then he goes and he does the rubber banding, and he goes back and he's like the perfect Boy Scout. Oh, I'm gonna read the rights. You cannot kill Kirk. Then he goes, I fine, kill Kirk. So this is the whole series is the who are you really, and can you go nature versus nurture?
Yeah, and I think they set that up very well in the first episode of the series with Smokey saying that the nature
Mm-hmm.
versus nurture. I think they really did set that up for the season, and we're about to
Yep.
see. We're about to see how that goes, how it plays out, and how people turn out. And that's gonna, like we've said before, Agnes is gonna be a kick-ass little kid. I mean,
Yeah, she is in every side.
no matter how
That
careful,
girl is gonna be something.
no matter how careful her parents are, Elizabeth and Tom Keene are her parents. Good luck, child. You have the Hargraves on one side, the Reddingtons on the other. Good luck.
And we haven't yet met Katerina, or maybe we did and we just don't know it.
I'm still
there
not
is.
on board.
No, you're not. But you gotta admit that when Lynn talking about, that liking this and Red asking why you'd let me do it, that was very much what Emma was saying. It was fascinating and captivating,
Oh,
and
I don't disagree with Emma. I am kind of like that, like I am the situation with Nick betraying Tom. I'm not on board with it, but I'm also not off board. I'm kind of just waiting for more information. I could see Emma being Jennifer. It's the Carla being Katerina I have issues with. I do disagree with that one so far. But I am also willing that if it ever comes out that Carla is Katerina, I will bow down to your queenship there. It's fine. I'm willing to take that vow.
maybe every fan who has said that I'm such an idiot will send me $1, and then I'd be like
You'd be
very
really,
rich.
really.
Yeah.
All I ask is you share the wealth. Oh.
So this this episode to me was so much fun to see Red having fun, Liz having fun. I tell you, I think even Wrestler and Samar were having fun.
Oh, I agree. I think they had a lot of fun. I think Samar is geared towards this sort of thing. And I think Wrestler could have a lot more fun if he'd let himself cut loose, and he's starting to. So?
Hey, he's not so squeaky clean anymore, is he?
Look at those. Look at all those beautiful blemishes that make you human. But no, just watching the father-daughter chaos dance across my screen is just, I love it. And the funny thing is that I'm pretty sure that was the same scene they shot the conversation from season 1. The stairwell that he walks down. I mean, obviously it's not supposed to be the same place, but it's still the same stairwell that they shot the scene with them sitting on it, and Liz saying, Tom told me something before he died. And Red asking what? My father is alive. And to have that set come back around, and like I said, I understand it's not supposed to be the same place. I understand they have limited sets that they can work with. I am aware of this, but there's something very fulfilling and anybody that follows my Tumblr knows how much I love for full circles. Full circles are my jam. I mean, like, I love it when it comes around, and that to me is just a behind the scenes sort of coming around to my father is alive. Oh look, my dad is walking down the steps and I'm making a snarky comment about his dressing. Yeah, dressed like a pumpkin.
Well, it was also very nice. Go back to the scene in 114 when he comes down. He's in the tuxedo and he says, "Oh, I love your dress," and the clutch is cute. And then she goes instead of saying, "That is pumpkin," and they're having fun, and is a nice from the list of that moment to the list here, you realize how much Liz needed that family. And it wasn't really that it had to be perfect. And the reason why Liz chose to keep Agnes and why they're making different choices is because it doesn't matter. You think that you're saving your children by pushing them away and keeping them safe, but then you're really not, because they're your kids and the sins of a father and the world of a father, like Red told Kaplan.
Nature versus nurture.
She
It's
was.
really looking at that theme this season, and on a realistic side of it, I'm not sure where I fall, but I do love where they're going with it on the show. I do. I very much enjoy it because we saw it with Tom as well. It's a great parallel. The fact that he wasn't raised with his family, and yet his training
He's
still
so
brought him
much.
around it. Yeah. You see
And
so much
he's
of
so much
Scotty
like
and
his
Howard.
mom and his dad.
Well, when Scotty sat there describing Howard to him, in I think it was the first or second episode into the Redemption, I'm sitting there going, she might as well be describing Tom. I
And then
mean,
she says, reminds me of you.
yeah, exactly. And so it's nature versus nurture. It's fantastic. And so the entire situation with Liz, and anybody that follows my Tumblr knows that I love happy, smiling Liz, even if she regrets it later. Seeing her like that, seeing her so carefree and just able to cut loose like that,
Can
that's
we
something.
talk about that moment
Oh, it's
where
so
where
beautiful.
she when she said, "I'm scared of you," and I
Mm.
thought it was beautifully done, because I think the series will end when Red is able to tell he's the father, not she's the daughter.
That's
When
fair.
when when she has been able to accept him completely, when he has come home, he can be her father
He still
again.
hasn't done
Right
that,
now
has he?
she's no, is she's my, because you're my daughter. And he said it once, and that was in Cape May, when he thought that she was dead and it didn't matter anymore. Then he says, tell it yourself, say it out loud. And then, like 4 beats later, he's saying, her father, yes. That's the only time that he said it out loud, because he couldn't, or he risked her life.
Well, he said it to Kirk.
She's my daughter, but not I'm her
Hey,
father.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. And so
And he
that's
said,
just
that's my girl in Gina's Anitacos. And he says, you can be my, and the way he phrases things, he doesn't say, well, I can be your boyfriend. He says, you can be my girlfriend, so he can say, then okay, be my daughter.
yeah. It's always what she is, not what he is. That's
Well, it doesn't, I
fascinating.
mean, he cannot change. He doesn't feel he's the father. Red is, Sam was a father,
I agree.
but
Yeah.
nothing will change the fact that she's his daughter.
No, I thoroughly agree with that. Oh my
It was
gosh.
it
I
was
love this too.
I mean it, and then this the highest, the caper was just fantastic. I mean,
I
Red
loved.
doing all these levels of things and pulling the wool over everybody's eyes, and he plays a little the bumbly guy, and at the end,
I just love that he's like, take that
and she
too. And
goes,
she's like, what? She's
uh,
so excited though because she's having the biggest thrill of her life. She loves it. And there's just something fantastic about that. And I understand that she's not gonna, that she's trying not to lose herself. And I'm sure she'll get really freaked out at some point. But I do have faith that Liz is gonna find that balance, and I think I said last week that I feel like this season's gonna be about finding that balance,
mhm.
but kind of like a good redemption arc, you gotta go a little far into the deep end before you can come back out, and
Where do you think that balance is going to be?
I don't know
Is she
yet.
gonna end up running Reddington Empire? Is she gonna make Reddington Empire to be less
We'll see.
illegal?
Like I do not see her going. Like I could see Tom running Halcyon. And as much as I could see someone like Scotty telling Liz that she'd do fantastic at Halcyon, I don't see her playing second fiddle to Tom. I just don't see it.
Yeah, she could play Red Empire though.
But, and that's the thing, is that perhaps she'll create her own out of Red's,
A little
or
more legal.
yeah, just more, basically kind of her own version. Maybe she'll keep a connection to the FBI. I don't know yet. I feel like she's so in flux right now. We're finding out so many fun little tidbits with Liz. It's really exciting for me because we're seeing all of this and we're getting all of this, and she's growing, and she's the possibilities are endless. It's fantastic.
And I just thought about something. You remember when Red crashes into her life? Okay, first episode, she's not doing any undercover. Second episode, she's not really doing any undercover. Third episode, let's go to Wujing, to the deeper earth, to do something that you don't even know what you're doing. Let's go undercover, Liz. And from there on is Liz undercover, Liz undercover, Liz undercover, because Red knows who the mother is. Mm-hmm. The mother was a talented covert operative.
Yes, I agree. I think he's been playing on her talents for years now.
And I find it, let's say for one thing that she grew up to be an FBI agent. Do you think that was something that Red was pushing her? Because I find very intriguing. Let's say that my theory is right and Emma is Jennifer. Emma ends up in MI6 and Liz ends up in the FBI. Now, wasn't that a coincidence?
I don't know. It'd be interesting.
Red was a naval officer.
Because I'm so on the fence about Emma being Jennifer, I have trouble really. I find it interesting, but yeah, if she is, then yes. I mean, because we do know via the comics that Red was potentially involved in pushing her through the fast track of the FBI Academy. So maybe he was involved in it, but to be fair, she had to make that choice that that's what she wanted to do. I mean,
maybe because that's what her father did. And I'm wondering that, that I've always
nurture.
had that theory. Exactly. That Katerina was not really a KGB agent. I always had the theory that she was really a CIA agent. So there you go. And the kids end up doing what? Exactly like them.
She might have been, but to be fair, if from the Russian point of view, the KGB agent is just the same as a CIA agent. I mean, that's, as Americans, we look at KGB and go, oh, evil, no, but, I mean, the Russians, I would assume, don't look at them quite that way, I mean.
No, they look at the CIA as a evil one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's all a point of view. And so.
But she was a covert operative, and that is the thing. And Liz was seductive, and we already got when we were giving that little thing that Liz seduced the night manager, we were already anticipating something that came. I mean, and think about it, that was in 114. That came about in 220 when she starts learning that Katerina was a honey trap. So a season and a half later, you're learning something that the seeds were planted right there.
Oh,
so it's
good heavens, yes. The seeds are planted all through. And that's something I made the comment on earlier. That sometimes I feel like they work very slowly on things, like with Bud and with various things that they do with Charlene, but they do work at them. I hear some people go, oh, this is a thread dropped, and I'm like, listen, I don't agree with their pacing all the time, But they do get to it. It's not that they've completely dropped it. Like, I feel like the Bud scenario was a lot longer than it should have been, but it was still handled. It's, whether I
It was
agree,
the right time to do it.
yeah, it just they handled it when they needed it to work. Did it feel awkward in other places? Maybe, but that may just be me and my hypervigilance on Tom's,
I mean,
arcs.
just because because the major didn't move on Tom doesn't mean that the major didn't know exactly what Tom was. Maybe I think that when he goes for the heist, that was the major giving Tom a last chance. If you go with Gina, you will live.
Oh, I think that's
But
exactly what it was, because she called him and said, "You were right." You know?
so yeah, so it's such a they play very long games, and I always tell people I used to be a crazy person about the dangling ends. They're not dangling; they're
And,
just waiting
and
for
that
them.
that's what I mean. Yes, exactly. Exactly. So, does that about
That
wrap us
takes
up?
I gotta say something about the brilliance of Red Plan. I mean, this is the kind of things that where you start seeing everything that Red does, even when he seems surprised. Oh, well, it was the first thing that came to mind. No, that wasn't. He already had a plan going, and he may be improvising the little details, but Red is an extremely talented undercover. Remember what he said? Tom and I share a lot of things. It's I'm in awe. I think this season is getting even better than I even expected it to be, and I am so excited to see what he brings.
Oh, I agree. I think it's going to be utterly fantastic. And this second episode, and I feel like I have a lot of expectations for Blacklist. It's one of those shows that sometimes I go in with such high expectations that nobody could ever meet them. And I almost felt like that's what I did with the first episode up until maybe the last 10-15 minutes of it. And then suddenly the entire episode had met my expectations without my realization. And that was on me. That was entirely on me. I should have seen it
Oh,
coming.
that's when you knew that was it. I had my clue in the woods.
Oh, shush you. I know you see it from the beginning. Stop bragging. Nobody likes a bragger.
You know that nobody pats my back, so I gotta pat my own.
Okay, I'm patting it. There we go.
There, oh, thank you. That feels so much better. Yeah, I mean, when they were in the woods and he shoots the next one goes on your feet, and he was so concerned with saving him. He's like, this is something else. And you know what? I found it very interesting that when he goes to rebuild his empire, he goes to the things that the Pentagon looked at. The Pentagon looked at this guy to see how he was moving this entire city.
Ooh, that's a very interesting point. I hadn't even thought about that, but that's very fascinating wording there. You're right. That's a really good point. See, I'm patting your back. There you go.
So that, to me, that was like, yeah. Once he said that, it's like, hey, yeah, I know you're up to something. And gets to me to that thing that Red is really running a mission, and there's some people higher up that know what he's doing, and I think that Cooper was there in order to provide support.
You know, that actually, like, I've always kind of been on the edge of that one. That's one of your crazy theories that I'm more on the edge with.
Mm-hmm.
That may be the point that pushes me just a little bit, inches me into the territory of actually agreeing with it.
So we'll see, all the things that he's doing, and we have to see, because he said that in the building, in that house, there was a cornerstone of how he planned to rebuild his thing. It wasn't the Picasso. The Picasso was a freebie and he kept it, but that wasn't what he went to look for. It wasn't the necklace, because he returned that.
The penny was what he was after.
That's what we're meant to see, to think.
Okay, you think it's something else?
I think it is something in that thumb drive. Remember that he has done that before. He takes a piece of the journal.
Mm-hmm.
He takes a photo. And in a thumb drive, you don't even see it happening because he had it, and then he gives it to Cooper. He may have got a lot of information from it, and by the time the FBI moves into all of them, he's already went there, took the little spoils. Because what was really, a lot of people say, oh, he's like Thomas Crown. He wasn't. In appearance, he was, but Red said he's using his dark money to influence politicians for when he decides to run as his next thrill. So he was preempting a player that would have been kind of cabal-like to enter the fray. Mm-hmm. So I think that what Red is still doing is he's taking down those little heads one by one, strategically placed. And this one was he's going to, instead of taking it down, he's going to take that information and slide into his own things. He doesn't take
that, yeah. Taking out the enemies, there would be more enemies than allies. Yes, I like that, because it's very much Red. I mean, in a nutshell.
It's, if you want to understand Red, you have to read The Art of War. Red's entire thing is The Art of War, and I think he even quoted it a few, or he quoted Confucius. Maybe it's Confucius, not The Art of War.
He does,
but definitely everything he does. Yeah, everything that he does is right out of The Art of War.
I think it's a fair bet to bet that Red is very well read.
Yeah. Oh, I love that bit with the museum. I love it. And Nancy Reagan could look at this set of dishes here and all that is fascinating.
The fact that I'm a huge Sinatra fan. I've been a Sinatra fan for years, and I loved Liz. No, I can't imagine dinner with Sinatra. I'm just like, that would be me right there. Like, I would love to imagine it, but I can't. It's just too amazing.
It was a really, really fun episode. We're seeing a lot of Red's underworld and the way he thinks, the way he goes at things. So whenever you think that, oh yeah, it's a penny, but he gives a penny for your thoughts. It's almost like he was giving the penny to, and we never saw Liz return it.
No, we didn't.
Mm-mm.
Maybe it's hers now.
Well, she wouldn't accept the trust fund for the kid. Now he has a $3 million penny.
Well, to be fair, the $3 million was for the collection. Not the penny itself.
Unless somebody else is missing that penny from a collection.
The roomie did comment that I feel like she said she looked it up one time, like before this. She's a collector of various sorts, and so it doesn't surprise me that she did. And I think she said that those type of pennies go for something like 100,000. I don't quote me on that, but I'd have to check with her to see what the price was. But it was some absurd amount for a penny. You know, it wasn't $1 million, but it was some absurd amount for a penny.
So you know that was not what he went for. So it has to be the thumb drive.
Yeah,
it have to be some information of the people that he works with. That's the people that he's gonna go after.
I could definitely see that.
Well, we'll have to see what comes up, and it's been a wild ride.
Oh, goodness. It's so great. It's so much fun. I mean, Megan puts it, enjoy the ride, and I agree. It's like a freaking roller coaster. It's so great.
Is it the next episode that Tom is going to be working undercover with Red?
Yes, I'm excited. I love those two undercover together, especially when they're at odds.
Yeah, having to trust somebody is going to be great.
See, I'm such a mean fan. I do like to beat on my favorites. Tom, go undercover with the man that wants to kill you right now. Go. See what happens, Tom.
It would be fun because now they're family too,
Yeah, I have faith that Red won't kill Tom. I have faith in, maybe not as much in him caring about Tom quite to that extent, but I do have faith in him caring for Liz to that extent. And so I do believe that if Liz didn't love Tom, Tom would be up a creek without a paddle, but she does, and she's made it very, very clear, late to work clear. And I just love that. I had such a wild night. I don't care, Keen. She's like, but my husband's home. You don't understand. Let me have a conversation with you, Cooper. Let me tell you about my wild night. I was just like, Liz, he doesn't care. Honey, he doesn't care. Oh, but it's gonna be so much fun to watch them work together, because some of my favorite scenes of the Blacklist are Ryan and James.
To me, I'm absolutely my absolute favorite scenes are between those two.
They're fantastic together, because Ryan was good when he came in. He has learned so much from James, and they work so well off of each other. They're just brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to me, and any scenes that they're together are just so, and they haven't had a good scene together in a while, so I'm excited for that. I think with that we are done with this podcast.
And so if you would like to leave us comments, we're on Facebook, Tumblr, and Twitter. You can listen to us on SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. We love comments. We love conversations. Please feel free to chat with us. We're nice. We don't bite.
Most of the time.
We get snarky, but we don't bite. You know.
I don't have a tulip garden to put the blood in it, so don't worry about it.
Say what?
Remember the tulip garden when Miss Kaplan first exsanguinated the body in the tulip garden, and I'm thinking, boy, those tulips must be really good.
Oh my gosh. We're going into winter. It'll freeze over. No bodies can be buried right now. It'll be okay. On that note, we will see you guys next week. Wednesdays are fun. And it's now Blacklist Wednesday. Enjoy and have a great week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.